So, just to get started, this is just kind of an overall discussion of decentralized finance, and you two are some of our biggest partners in that. So, I wanted to start with Weso and see if you could just give us a general definition of what DeFi is.
Sure. So without getting into like all of the different buzzwords, when you hear about DeFi, really it's getting rid of like the centralized control or the custody of like somebody holding control of your funds and being able to interact and make trades, lend, be able to earn yields, all in a decentralized fashion. So basically, what Beefy does, we go ahead and put the contracts out there, and anybody can go ahead and interact with them. So it's, you personally interacting with a contract. There's no like middle person. We just kind of have our UI up. And so decentralized finance is kind of, getting rid of that portion of the world. So you can, freely go and, play with a whole different set of like, traditional finance tools in a decentralized way.
Natasha, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I like what Weso just said. I just want to add that I love DeFi, and one feature I think is important that is that DeFi has a lower thresholds than traditional finance. So everyone has the access to DeFi, including the unbanked population, including the retail investors, and all those who values privacy and wants to doing their financing anonymously. So yeah,
it's actually a really good point. Like in the United States, in order to like do day trading or something like that, if you wanted to make multiple trades, you have certain like limits and guidelines, and decentralized finance gives a lot of people the opportunity to go in, make multiple trades and trade a whole bunch of different assets. And it's the freedom that you kind of have.
And in DeFi, you don't have those regional restrictions.
Yeah, for sure.
So for somebody who is brand new to DeFi and they were coming from a very centralized traditional finance system, what are some things that you would explain to them to just kind of get them started, or kind of an entry point for them?
Well, I think just getting familiar with how the blockchain sort of works. So I think that's like really the one point from somebody coming from like the centralized world where you're like mostly making trades on exchanges, is just getting used to, okay, I have my address, I have to pay for gas for transactions. How do I interact with all these different protocols? Really the baseline understanding of like what an AMM is, or a decentralized exchange. Then what we do, like yield optimization and how farming sort of works. So I think there's like a definitely like a learning curve when it comes to like actually interacting with decentralized finance, like much larger than it is on like a centralized exchange type world. So you have to kind of understand how to actually interact with the blockchains. Now there's so many different networks and blockchains. So like, how do you bridge funds? How do I move my funds? Fiat like on ramps and off ramps. So I think that there's a learning experience, and I think Beefy in itself, it's something that we've definitely identified. If we want to continue to get more retail engagement, expand the user base beyond people who are really more advanced crypto users, then there has to be some sort of, I think, education on our end in order to get people more familiar and understand exactly what they're interacting with, how to interact, how to move funds. So I think the ownership on that, I think, is all of the different protocols, right? We have to be able to build out our content to become a little bit more easy to understand. But it's definitely a challenge, I think, from going from a centralized exchange to trying to interact with DeFi right now.
Yeah, I think I've just started to kind of navigate that for myself. So it's exciting to feel like there's a new opportunity for having more autonomy, and a little more control, and having access to more. But there's also this increased level of responsibility and understanding how everything works. And it can be a little intimidating. So I have been doing so much like research, and there are a lot of educational resources on it. But having calls like this is really helpful because we can work to develop the gaps in those learning resources for people.
I actually want to add something to what Sonia said. As we know that many new DeFi users came from centralized exchanges, and Netswap is a decentralized exchange, and you can tell a big difference from that. Because I was using centralized exchanges myself, and you can have the feeling that your assets are not holding your own real wallet. Your assets was in the wallet of that exchange, and I'm not saying that it's not secure. It can be secure, but when you are withdraw your assets or deposit your assets through that centralized exchange, maybe you can have a long waiting period or something, that you are not actually controlling your own funds. But in decentralized exchange, it's totally different. Your assets are in your own wallet, and you are controlling your private key. So you don't need any authorities approved to transfer your assets or do anything else on it. So I hope everyone can enjoy the feeling of that. And of course, there are a lot of education we need to provide to users who come from centralized exchanges, and then doing those education like our user guides and we are also educating people in our community. Yeah,
I definitely agree. I mean, it goes back to the not your keys, not your crypto. So just that idea of ownership and sovereignty, and with centralized exchanges, you can have limits on your withdrawals, or your account can get flagged for whatever reason. So there are all these barriers that come into play. But then, yeah, weighted on the other side is that responsibility of being that final line of custody, and it, especially for new users, if they're not comfortable, that could be something that they kind of need to weigh between those two decision points on.